So we are live, I think. This is super exciting today. We are trying Be Live TV, not for the first time for me, but it actually for the first time it works for me. So I hope you guys can see this. So I'm going to just make sure that actually, yeah, I see us. Oh my God, how exciting. I went onto my Facebook page. I just want to make sure that it's live. There's going to be some comments on the bottom if somebody comes on. So let's hope somebody comes on. But in any event, this is a super special day because I have my dear friend, good colleague, amazing female entrepreneur, Tanisha Townsend of Girl Meets Glass. Welcome.
Hello.
Thank you so much for being here.
No, thank you for having me. I'm
excited. And I just mentioned that you are live from Paris, France.
Yes, I am.
It is nighttime for you, so thank you for interrupting your dinner time to talk to us.
No problem. We're talking about wine, so wine and dinner time, that kind of goes together, so it's fine.
Perfect, absolutely. So a little backstory, which I shared a little bit if you don't see my social media posts, but Tanisha and I met, and you know, can you believe it? We're actually celebrating a decade's worth of friendship. It was 10 years ago.
Was it?
9. I know. It makes us feel, not that we're old because we age backwards, but...
Right. We're vintage. This is a good vintage.
Yeah, it is. Absolutely. 2009 was a great vintage. We met in Burgundy. And Tanisha is also a certified specialist of wine through the Society of Wine Educators. I'm a certified wine educator. So we share that in common. And also another thing in common is that we both picked up from our home country and moved to a completely different country without knowing anybody, right? And just pursued our passion. So this is what I'm really excited to talk about today with you, Tanisha, because I find it so inspiring when people actually do what they dream about. You know, so many people say, oh, I wish I could live in Paris, and then they never do. And you simply upped and left. But I wanted you to just kind of, maybe you can give a little bit of short background about yourself, your, you know, where you started, you know, how you got into wine, and then of course how it all happened that you moved across the oceans.
Yes. Okay. So hello, everyone. But my story starts a while ago. I always say that I started this path when I was in grad school. Grad school was a little stressful, and so it drove me to drink. And so as I started drinking, I was in DC at the time. And so there are a lot of wineries in Virginia and Maryland. So I would go to the wine festivals that they had there because they would have those kind of often. And I ended up talking with, and had I known this would be so like pivotal in my life, I would have remembered exactly who I was talking to, but I don't. But I was talking with this guy who worked at this winery, and I was just fascinated by the flavors in the wine. And I was like, oh, I'm getting this cherry and then these other berry flavor. And I was like, so how do you get the cherry in here? And he was like, oh, yeah, well, you know, the soil and then the land. I was like, oh, you grow cherries in the soil near the vines. He was like, no, it's just the flavors of the. And I'm like, okay, so you put cherries in after you ferment, and like after you get it, the juice, you mix in cherry juice. He's like, no. So I was really trying to understand how it got this cherry and this other red berry flavor. He probably looked at me like, oh my goodness, I can't with this girl. I have other people I need to work with. And so I took a wine certification class after that, because when I want to know something, I need to know it. So I took a wine certification class. From there, met a gentleman that worked in wine marketing. And he said, like, you should come work with me. I think you'd be really good at this. So this is still part-time.
Tanisha, I lost you.
Uh-oh. Am I gone?
I lost you, Tanisha.
Oh, no, because I can see you and everything. Uh-oh. What should I do? Stop and come back? Oh, no. Do I refresh?
Can you hear me, Tanisha?
I can, yes.
So I don't know what happened there. I was trying to I was trying to share the broadcast, and it actually booted you off. So I'm sorry.
Oh no, it's
well.
okay.
All right. So picking up from your story, I think the last thing I heard, it was really going through the flavor profile, getting to, where you really are starting to learn about how is wine made and getting interested in that.
Yes. So took a wine certification class, met a guy in wine marketing, started working with him. And this is just part-time because I was still in grad school and then also had a full-time job. Started doing events and things with him. Fast forward a little bit, and he suggested, he sent me the information to apply for the trip to Burgundy. And I was like, oh, well, okay, I'll apply, not knowing anything about it, but thinking, okay, this seems like a cool opportunity, so let me do it. So I did. And then when I got to Burgundy, and you remember the people that were in the class with us.
Yeah.
The crazy thing was, Jay, I was taking the level 3 W set from Jay at that time. So I was his student. So when I got accepted for the trip and then I saw his name and he was like, yeah, that was me. He's like, that's you, Tanisha? And I was like, yeah. He's like, wow, that's okay. Very good. So I'm like,
we should mention Jay Humans is a master of wine. So, of course, that's the highest title you can get. And he's a really nice MW. They're not all very nice. Some of them are
Jay is fantastic.
Yes.
I mean, great personality, so easygoing, and so, it is so fascinating to learn wine from him and just to hear him talk about wine. So he's fantastic. So being in the group with him, because also this was only the second group of wine educators they had in Burgundy.
Mm-hmm.
So, people are going around introducing themselves. It's you with the diploma, and then the CWE, it's JMW, it's Guy Stout, MS, it's Linda, who is over the International Wine Center of New York. It's James King, who, I don't know if he had his diploma, but he had several letters after his name. And it was me with literally no certification, because I wasn't going to, after all of that, I wasn't going to say, oh, yes, W set level 2.
Right.
So everybody introduced themselves, and I was like, Tanisha Townsend. Okay, who's next? It's your turn. I don't have anything else. And that's how I felt. I don't know if other people could tell or knew it at the time. I was so intimidated and quiet that week. Because I was like, oh my gosh, I'm around these people. I'm like, okay, if I don't say anything, then they won't know if I should or shouldn't be here. They'll just be like, all right, she's here, fine. If I open my mouth and say something wrong, then they're like, how did she get here?
Yeah.
So I just nodded, tasted a bunch, and that was that. But I will say that trip and getting that certification is really what changed my mind about wine as far as it being a career. Before, it was just something I was just doing. But after that trip, getting that certification, passing that level, meeting all of you all who had made a career out of this, I was like, okay, this is real. I can do this. And this is what we're going to do. Whatever it takes, we're following this path. So from there, it just kind of snowballed into, I started teaching at a university in Maryland. I started speaking at wine festivals. I started sending out proposals and pitches to speak at conferences. And from one of the conferences, someone I met there messaged me about an opportunity to guest lecture at her school in Paris. She's like, oh, by the way, it's in Paris, right? And I was like, well, I'm on my way. Was super excited because it all happened at the perfect time. There was literally nothing holding me back or a real reason for me to stay. I mean, fear, but I wasn't scared. I don't when I think back to it, I didn't think about it at all. Uh-oh, am I going again?
We're losing Tanisha again. I'm not sure if it's me or somebody.
Or is it me?
Or Tanisha, but hopefully she'll be back on. It's a little hokey this, but hopefully we'll get her back on. So we're trying a new technology here. Sometimes that is a little, there she goes.
Okay.
I don't know if it's me or.
I don't know. And all I do is stop the camera and start it again. And then
that's so weird. Okay, so I just think that what you just talked about, how you ended up and got inspired to move to Paris. I mean, I don't believe in coincidences, so you met this woman and she happened to live in Paris and she invited you. You were at the same event. And so I think that the universe really conspires to make it so that you are in the right place at the right time, right?
Absolutely.
So it's like, oh my God, what a coincidence. I just really don't believe in that. So
yeah,
I absolutely love that story. And also the fact that you really hustled, and you have to believe in yourself, and you have to, even me, I will admit sometimes it's like, well, me speak in front of an audience about wine. I don't know enough. Sometimes we can just think like, I don't know enough. I'm not educated enough. I'm not smart enough. And we think these thoughts, but they're really not true. And so when you see somebody else out there doing the thing, they're like, well, I could do that. Well, you can, but it's all up here, right? It's the reason we can talk ourselves out of it. And you didn't. You were like, no, I can do this. And you really felt called to follow that route. So that's so incredible. So now, of course, you are in Paris. And how long have you lived in Paris now?
4 years. It'll be 5 years in October.
Wow. So that time flies. Yeah. I remember when you moved, and I was really just so excited for you. Yes. So you have a business called Girl Meets Glass. And I should mention, it's not just about, I'll let you talk about it, but it also includes cocktails. So it's wine and cocktails. And I think that was another reason why we really connected, and why I love you, because I don't find a lot of wine people loving cocktails, or cocktail people into wine, both, right? It's either or almost. Yep. So there's a little bit more of it now, but I'm also a certified specialist of spirits through the Society of Wine Educators. I was
Me too.
Yes, that's right. I remember you got that. And, worked as a mixologist for a long time, and then just kind of fell back into wine. But that doesn't mean that the other is less important. It's really just fascinating. So tell us a little bit about what inspired you to start that business and what it's all about.
So I was inspired to do Girl Meets Glass. It came based off of a blog that I did when I was going through the WSET courses. And so I just wanted somewhere to just write about my experiences. But I didn't like the name and didn't really like the direction of it. So I was like, let me kind of change it, because I also got into cocktails. I started meeting some bartenders and just enjoying. I got into gin and I got into whiskey. And so liking those, I'm like, okay, let's, go into this a little more. So that's when I got the CSS. And I'm like, Girl Meets Glass is a name that kind of, includes everything in a glass. That could be, I drink beer, drink spirits, I drink tea and coffee. So I can talk about that as well. So whether straight spirits or wine or cocktails, we can do everything.
I love that.
And once I came to Paris, when people found out what I did, they always had so many questions about wine, and like, oh, well, can you take me to this wine bar, and what should I order? And can you come to the store with me? I need to buy this. Or texting me like, I want to buy this. Can you help? And so I'm like, well, maybe people have questions. How can I figure out how to help them better? Yeah. So I came up with the wine tours. So I started doing wine tours in the city, just going to some different wine bars, showing them what the wine list looks like, how to order, things like that. Then from there, started doing private wine tastings, cheese tastings. I now do day trips to Champagne. I also teach at a university here instead of just a guest lecturer. It's kind of an adjunct professor kind of thing. And I want to move into speaking at festivals and speaking at wine fairs and things like that around Europe, and not just France, because I'm not quite ready to give a full presentation in French yet. Or I give it in French, but then I couldn't answer questions.
Right. Yeah, I was going to ask you. So, leading into that, in terms of what do you find challenging about this move and living in Paris, but also what the most inspiring or the most favorite things are. So can you talk a little bit about that? Because I'm sure people are interested in learning more about your sort of everyday and what your experiences has been.
Yes. So I'd say the hardest thing is probably the language piece and just not being confident. I think anytime you do something different, you have a certain level of fear anyway. And you have a fear of whether it's speaking in public or sending out a pitch or sending out an email. That is just natural. But add on top of that, you're doing it in a language that isn't your mother tongue and that you're not completely comfortable in. That's a different level of, oh my goodness, I'm really scared. Oh wait, does this sound right? Am I saying the right thing? So you're adding on top of your fear. You're like, I don't even know if these are the right words. Like this might not even be, I might not even be saying what I want to say. And I might be saying it and he doesn't understand my accent, or, you know, it may be some kind of disconnect there. So I'll say that's the thing that kind of gets me the most. But what I do love about being here is the opportunity. There are so many opportunities here to learn, so many wine tastings and conferences and events. And I mean, just wine bars everywhere. All the wines that I used to study in WSET, in, you know, the CSW, in the French Wine Scholar, all of those things that you study, I can taste them now because I'm here.
Yeah.
Whereas, and also it's not that expensive.
Right.
In the States, you know, trying to get a bottle of Burgundy in the States, okay, get a good one, 35, 40, and that's kind of low end.
Yeah.
Here, I can pay that for maybe a Grand Cru.
That's amazing. I'm very jealous about that. But yeah, that's a funny. And you know, what I love about what you said, the positive and the negative, the good thing is that you can change that. The language will come. And I mean, I've lived here for so long, and English is different because English, everybody learns English in school, but French not always. So it's like kind of a brand new thing you have to adapt your brain to. And I lived in Paris for a year. I did manage to speak it fluently then, but I don't anymore because I don't practice it, but I can understand it. So it's like you say, it's harder to maybe converse back and forth rather than, you know, understanding when somebody else is speaking. But I think that's fantastic. So tell us what a typical day looks like for you. I don't know if there is a typical one because
I was gonna say, typical day. So a typical day, my first alarm actually goes off at 5:30. That doesn't mean I get up at 5:30. I just open my eyes and usually press snooze. The next alarm goes off at 6. That's when I actually get up. The morning is the part of my day where I can actually have control. And so I like to get up earlier so I can do the things that I want to do. So whether it's a little reading, a little journaling, meditating, I'll study my French in the morning, but nothing can get in the way of my morning time. Whereas the evening, other things can come up, other people, other events, things like that. So I like to get up early and get stuff done. So I do that for hour, 2 hours. Then I'll get up, check email, check social media. I also teach English during the day. So I'll have a few English clients, business English clients that I'll work with. Then I'll have probably some wine tours in the evening. And I meet them at a metro stop. And then we walk over to the wine bar, go through that. That's like 2.5 hours. I may meet up with friends after that, or I may just come home, get dinner, kind of wind down a bit, drink some water, watch some Netflix.
Yeah.
And then.
Great. Yeah. Fantastic. I love that, you know, just really going to wine bars and showing people wines, like sounds like something people just do for fun, and you get to do it for a living. So that's great.
That part I do love about it.
Yeah. I want to talk more about your experience in Paris. But before we do, I know we both have a wine today because we obviously have to talk about wine. So I had asked you to look into maybe, because I know there are so many amazing natural wine bars in Paris, and that whole scene of raw wine and natural wine is big in Paris. So I wanted to sort of pick one that you felt was looked good, and I have one too, so we can share each other's wines, talk a little bit about them, and then go from there. And also, for those of you who watch me, know that I specialize in natural and vegan wines, so they're not always mutually, you know, they're not like, you know, all the same. So natural doesn't necessarily mean vegan. Vegan doesn't not mean natural necessarily, but I like the wines that are both. Sometimes it's hard to find, but what did you get today?
So what I have is, it's from the Loire Valley. So it is a Chateau de, and I always have trouble with the EUI pronunciation in
Oh,
grapes.
yeah.
Yeah. So, and it's from Anjou, the Anjou region of the Loire Valley. And this is it. If you can see that, it might be too bright. I can't.
Why don't you? Yeah, exactly. If we can't see it, we'll just put the name in the comments.
Yeah, we'll put the name in the comments.
Look it up.
And this is 100% Chenin Blanc.
Mm-hmm.
And it is fermented a little bit in oak, but the soil is schist.
Okay.
And so schist usually imparts a real mineral kind of, and some people always have trouble with the word mineral. Like, what do minerals taste like? Kind of like a wet rock kind of thing going on there. And I actually like a little minerality and a little acidity also in this one. So
one of my favorite grapes, Chenin Blancs.
Yeah.
So cheers. I will share what I have too. And Loire Valley happens to be one of my favorite wine regions in the entire world. It was the first wine region I actually visited because I used to live in Paris. I would take day trips. So actually Champagne.
Oh, yeah, that's not far.
Champagne was my first. Actually, it was Champagne or Loire, but either way, they're very close.
Yeah, because Champagne's very close. That's 45 minutes on the train.
I know, it's like, it's like a commute from Brooklyn into Manhattan. But that's fantastic. So yeah, definitely put the name in the comments. And what I like about Chenin Blanc, it's just such a versatile grape, very food friendly grape. You can have everything from bone dry to a sweet dessert wine, sparkling, and anything in between. It's a grape that really is age worthy, right? Because not a lot of white wines age.
Right, they don't.
White Burgundies, you have some Chenins and some Rieslings that are fantastic with age. But I think Chenin Blanc is really an underrated grape, but it's one of those grapes you want to try if you just are tired of the same old Chardonnay you're drinking or whatever, and try Chenin Blanc because it's such a rewarding grape. So I happen to come upon this, and I don't know if you can see it either.
I can see yours super clear. I don't know what's wrong with mine.
Okay, so this is Cabernet Franc from my region where I live in the Hudson River, and that is actually sometimes really difficult to find. However, this is a friend of mine. He is a winemaker. He moved from Brooklyn to the Hudson River, and he is really specializing in raw wine. You can find his wines on rawwine.com.
Okay.
This is a Cab Franc from 2017 from the Brunswick Vineyard, and it's natural, it's raw, it's biodynamic. He no fining, no filtering. It's technically vegan, although I think maybe in the soil sometimes he does use some manure or some type of animal remnants. But he's also my tasting group partner. So every Thursday we gather a whole bunch of people, and he, like I said, he moved from Brooklyn to the Hudson Valley, and he is partnering with local growers to help develop a bio-intensive vineyard management program that works within this very challenging climate we have here in the Northeast. So that's really sometimes very tough. These are hand-harvested grapes. Cab Franc was actually fun that you picked the Loire Valley because, of course, Cab Franc grows really well there, and some of my favorite Cab Francs in the world are from there.
Yeah, from like Chinon and Semur Champagny and
And this macerates for about 5 weeks with it's 30% whole cluster, old used French oak, neutral French oak, I should say. And he uses very little sulfur, which then is natural as it's 20 ppm, anywhere between 5 and 20. And sits about 10 months in barrels before he bottles it. So these are organic grapes, and I believe they might be from the Finger Lakes. So he sources grapes, but he also grows some of his own. So his name is Todd Cavallo, but his winery is called Wild Ark, and it's a really cool bottle. You can't see it, but Wild Ark is in sort of heightened white.
Very
minimalistic.
Yeah, post a picture on your social. I'll do that for mine too. I'll post a picture in my story. And tag you on Instagram. Please. But yeah, this one I meant to say that this 2016, and it is a bio wine, so biodynamic.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so this one is biodynamic. They have a little designation that they put on the labels when things are biodynamic.
Right.
Because there is a lot of people are doing more natural wine and things like that here. Yeah. Just trying to get back to how they used to make it, because they're thinking that all those extra chemicals, things like that, aren't necessary. It's a little harder to find vegan based on the kind of things that they need to do to the soil, like using manure and the waste and things like that. But doing it in an organic and biodynamic style is something that they're starting to do here. I had thought about getting a champagne just because for a while I wasn't sure that you could even really do champagne in an organic or biodynamic style and still retain the same flavor profile and go by the same rules, because champagne, you know, out of all the regions, I'd say of the world, Champagne is the most strict with how things have to be done. But there are several champagne houses that are doing things in the biodynamic style. I actually went to a tasting down in France beginning of April during Champagne Week, and they have a Bulls and Bio tasting. So all the and for them, Bio is just organic, and some go the step further and do biodynamic. But they had all the organic champagne producers there. And there were at least 40, least 40. And that tasting was so crowded. Like, so just trying to get in and taste certain things and then having people tell me like what I should taste, what is good, what is the flavor. And if you didn't tell me, I wouldn't know any different.
Exactly. You know, that's really encouraging to hear, because for those of you who don't know, who are watching, is that champagne is actually as romantic and as fantastic and luxurious as that product and wine is. They're some of the most unhealthy soils because they've used so much chemicals on the soil, and it's kind of scary to look. Some of the basically the soil looks dead because they've just been pouring so much crap on it. But there is a rising, you're right, there is a rising movement of organic producers in Champagne that are going sort of the separate route. I think it might only be about 5% or maybe 10. I don't know. I think maybe all in all, it's very small portion still, but it's really encouraging to hear that 40 producers at least were there and that are, farming in that fashion. So that's,
and also some that are fairly large, some that I had heard of before. It's not just like a mom and pop, 3-person operation. There are some that have champagne houses and tasting rooms right on the Avenue de Champagne in Epernay. One place, Champagne Fleury, they have a wine bar in the middle of Paris called Macaw Fleury, and they have all their champagnes there. So just knowing that it's not just the smaller places, that the larger houses are starting to do that too.
That's so important, because they really are the trendsetters, and people that they become they're so visible. So if you lead with that, kind of like in the food world too, we need those big companies to make changes. The smaller ones is great, but really that the bigger companies, when they start to make a change, that change is on the horizon, and not just in the food world. We know that there's so much unsustainable methods of food production. Same with wine. They started to realize we have to farm with nature. We have to be kind to nature, not just farm with nature, but giving back to nature.
Yes.
So that we can continue to reap benefits and the deliciousness that we get from both food and drink, right?
I think people seeing how climate change has affected things, that has kind of changed their mind towards, okay, so we're being affected by climate change and we can see that. So now it makes us think a little more about our soil and how that's being affected. I think without seeing that live, real-time kind of climate change happen, they wouldn't think that other things could happen too. So I think that has changed a lot of people's minds as well.
So sorry about my dog keeps barking. There's something on there that he keeps barking at, and there's never a live without them barking. So it's kind of like my
right. It's like your thing, right? Yeah. It's like, the soundtrack. It's fine.
There's like, Scooby, be quiet. Yeah. Oh my gosh, sorry.
He wants to be a part. He's like, you will not leave me out. Okay.
So, we talk about, these, I'm still like now have a plan to come and visit you, because Paris for, I'm ashamed to say probably at least 6 or 7 years, maybe.
What? Oh my God, that's way too long.
There's no reason to, because I love going to London, and of course it's like a swoosh to get over to Paris. So that is just on my
quick trip on the Eurostar. Yep.
Spring of next year, I'm coming.
Okay. I'll still be here.
Oh gosh, there's actually now I know why they're barking, because there's neighbors across there. Nobody can come close to us. Scooby, Tofu, no, quiet.
Well, listen, they are going to protect you to the death.
Oh my God, nobody's gonna
Nobody can come
enter this
over.
yard for sure.
No.
So yeah, so of course Paris, I love. I do know that there's quite a lot of a vegan scene there. It's not as of course common because it's about brie cheese and it's about
and camembert and epwas and shows.
And I do miss those, I will say. But in any event, I know that there's a lot of natural wine bars. So can you give us some good tips on like what is the best thing to do? And of course you can write them down, but do you have some favorite things to do? Maybe not just wine bars, but for anything, for people going to Paris, what is your sort of favorite insider tips? Not just the Eiffel Tower and the Louvre, right? Because
and like, I mean, you have to do those because will people even really think you were in Paris if you don't have a picture in front of the Eiffel or you don't go to the pyramid and do this over the pyramid?
Yeah.
If I did that, there we go. Like if you don't do that, like you were never there.
Yeah.
So you have to do that. But what I really want people to do a little more when they come here is to walk. Like to just pick a neighborhood, whether it's not around the Louvre, it's not really a neighborhood around there, but like around Notre Dame, just kind of dip off into the neighborhood, walk the streets. You'll run into some fantastic wine bars, restaurants, cafes. Sit down on sit down on a terrace, have a cup of coffee, have a spritz, have a carafe of wine. Like live your best life and watch the people walk by. You will, I mean, that is the memory that you want to have of Paris. So many people come here and they say, oh, I didn't like it. I wasn't really feeling it. But then you say, oh, what did you do? Oh, we went to the Eiffel. We went to the Arc. We went to the Louvre.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, so if you go to New York and you just go to Times Square and you eat at a restaurant in Times Square and then you go see the Statue of Liberty and then you go to the NBC, ABC, those studios. Like, do you feel like you've seen New York? No, you don't do those things at home. And if people come to visit you, that's not where you take them.
Yeah.
So you can't come here and do that and think that you've gotten a feel for the city.
Yeah.
I say go to one of the more off the beaten path museums. And these are still popular. You've heard of them, but like go to the Orangerie where they have the Monet paintings. Go to the Musée d'Orsay. Go visit, why is the name of that museum? Go visit the Rodin Museum and go see that with the sculptures and hear about, see that museum. Those are cool museums to see. There's also a museum of romantic life.
Ooh.
And while the museum itself is, it's okay. When they have exhibits or exhibitions there, those are pretty dope. But the cool thing about that is when the weather is nice, they have this beautiful outdoor area, with under trees, and you can have like a coffee or wine or a sparkling water. Yeah. And you can just kind of sit out there and just kind of enjoy. Another thing that I love about Paris is, and life in France in general, it is a lot more relaxed. Like when people sit down and relax, they relax.
Yes.
Now, if you're around some of the business districts, okay, people look rushed and hurried and, stressed and walking fast and all of that. But when it's time to sit out for apéro or, on the weekends, they completely turn it off. They sit back, they have the drink, they're laughing, joking with friends, order a cheese plate or charcuterie, not you, but other people.
I get how they live. No, I did that.
Yeah, and just enjoy. Yeah. And that's something else for people to do. I would suggest find wherever the area they're staying in, try to find a market, one of the fresh markets. And that is definitely something to see. Because even the way, depending on what state and what city you live in, fresh markets aren't even a thing. Like, I know I can't say that in Chicago, I can just regularly go to a fresh market and find it, especially on my side of town.
Exactly.
Where I grew up. But here, you can find a fresh market every day somewhere. So that's something to do. And I take people to the fresh markets too. Sometimes when they come, if they have a more leisurely schedule, we'll go to a fresh market.
I absolutely love that. Yeah, that's what you were just saying. And I do miss that being from Europe and that, when you turn it off, you turn it off. It's not like, life isn't just work. It should be a combination of both, or just fun. And even if you love your work, sometimes you need to reset and do something different to come back and be re-inspired. And I think Americans were not very good at that here. And that's
at all.
I've gotten older, I really miss that, that quality of life that, and it is expected of you. It's not just like allowed, but you're supposed to go on vacation. You're supposed to like have fun on the weekend and turn it off. So that's really lovely. So definitely share some of, maybe those tips when after we log off, you can share a couple of things. And if people want to get in touch with you or follow you on social media, if they want to travel to Paris, maybe they want to book a tour with you, how can they get in touch with you?
Oh, absolutely. I love that. I love welcoming guests here. I love doing tours here. I love taking them to regular wine bars. There is a wine bar and a cheese place that's inside of one of the markets, in one of the covered markets that I take people to.
Nice.
If people specifically want a natural wine bar, I have a few places that I can take them to. And I'll also put those in the comments under the show. But to get in contact with me, Girl Meets Glass everywhere on social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and you can email me, Tanisha at girlmeetsglass.com.
Well, that's really easy to remember, and we'll be sure to blast that out for you as well, for everybody as well. And I know there's not, I'm going to just check and see that there are any comments on my Facebook, because I know it's a very difficult time for some people to come on, but what we'll do is probably find a way to share this. And of course, I'll try to make it so that this actually is public. I think what happened last time, I tried to change it to public, and then you disappeared. So I'm not sure that actually happened. That was the reason. But if not, I do apologize to those people who weren't able to come on, because I do have it on friends now. But I do have a few thousand friends. So hopefully people will share.
And hey, if not, we'll just have to do it again.
Well, I think we should. And I think we should maybe do maybe a thematic. If somebody who's watching this, maybe there's something specifically you guys want to know about, either relocation. We can talk about that, because we both
we both did it.
Living not just in a different city, but in a different country, dealing with different languages.
Different languages,
Yeah, and also maybe going more in depth about experiences you've had taking people on a tour. You do wine tours, like you said, to Champagne, and I'm sure you're going to start branching out to other European countries. And I might join you if a certain person gets reelected next year. I might join you and come to Europe or to London. No, not so, not necessarily just because of that, but because I really do miss Europe, and there may be, some chance of me being closer. London.
Hooray!
Yeah, I've been wanting to go back there, and I have family in London and loads of great friends, including yourself, of course, in Paris. So it would be so fun to do that. But I hope that we've inspired you to, just do something different. Well, you don't have to relocate to a new country necessarily.
Right.
Maybe it's trying a new wine. Try a Chenin Blanc. Try a Cab Franc from maybe close to you. Maybe if you don't live in the Hudson Valley, find out an area they grow grapes close to you. I'm sure if you're in the United States, there are, because there's grape growing in all 50 states. And of course,
you
in
can
Europe,
find something.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there anything else you want to share, Tanisha? I'm trying to keep these to sort of no more than 40 minutes and not tire people out, but I'm sure we can.
No, that makes sense. Right. We could talk for another hour, but no, we won't do that to the people. That'll just be 2 more episodes. It's fine. Exactly. No, I think that's it for this one. Just, don't be afraid to do something different. I'll live with fear. I don't want to live with regret. And I don't want to look back and think, oh, wow, I wish I had done this, or what about this opportunity? Especially when the opportunity presented itself so in my face, so perfectly, so clearly. And there wasn't anything holding me back. Not married, don't have children, because, that's a question people ask. Oh, what about your husband? I'm like, well, clearly I don't have one, because I wouldn't be able to do this. And, with the no children thing, either no pets, like there was literally nothing in the way.
Right.
And I needed to change. I had gone through a breakup not too long before this all came up. And so I'm like, all right, perfect. I'm just gonna leave the country. Like that's how we're gonna get over this. I'm out of this continent. We're done. Yeah. America, we're finished. So
I love it. That's so great. And it's like you say, it's so much better to just take chances. Don't live with regrets. And honestly, if you do something like this, I don't think there's anything to regret. You've just become an experience richer. And you know, you grow as a result of it. And I always say, wherever you're moving from, it'll always be there. You can always go back, right? Mm-hmm. But it's like when you should really take advantage of the if you have sort of an inkling, whether it doesn't have to be moving to a different place, but if you want to change careers, if you want to start your own business, if you want to start mixing up your daily routine, go work out or eat a different diet. So like if you want to go plant-based and you've been wondering, but you're like, well, everything's so difficult. It's not difficult. It's if you just take the first step, right? So
and that's take the first step.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. And either or, there's going to be negatives and positives with both. But I think
absolutely
at the end of the day, weighing them against each other, like what's more important to me at this time, and then go with that. So thank you, Tanisha, for being such an inspiration and for joining us today and taking time out of your
Thank you for having me.
Please, everybody, get in touch with Tanisha if you're going to Paris, and I'm sure that her tours are amazing. I'm going to take it next spring when I come and visit. So I'm going to book the trip soon. And for those of you, get in touch with Tanisha, Girl Meets Glass on all social medias, and also Tanisha at girlmeetsglass.com if you want to email her. And we'll put everything down below. And we will see you guys next Wednesday, hopefully.
Bye.
Tanisha, bye. Au revoir, as they say.
Right. Au revoir.
Bye.